The SAPD is a $17 million budget, and I don't have to tell you, our city budget is already under strain. My command staff and I have proven the ability to maintain your safety and services with a low officer ratio with lean budgets, and even though population growth and tough economies. Today, you're 42% less likely to be a victim of a crime than the year before I was elected. But as you know, there still are criminals. On a daily basis, our practices prevent crimes. And when a crime can't be averted, our strategies have proven successful in swift apprehension and arrest. Lower crime rates, proactive prevention, and rapid apprehensions. Why would you want to change that? I'm Tim Vasquez, and I'm your police chief. I'm a lifelong resident of San Angelo. I've been with the department over 26 years. I have served as your chief for almost 12 years. My entire adult life has been spent serving this community. I've served on numerous boards in our community. Some have been leadership San Angelo, United Way, where I served as campaign and board chair, National Prayer Breakfast Board, and the Mayor's Board, to just name a few. But most notably, I've served on the Chamber of Commerce Board and currently serve as the president of the Family Shelter Board. I was part of the new board that saved our shelter doors from closing. And since September of last year, I have served as president of the Texas Police Chief Association, for which I was elected, which has been a great honor and a humbling experience. I'm the first chief of San Angelo to ever serve on that board. Everybody here has talked about getting Officer of the Year. In 2004, I received Officer of the Year for the region from CLEAT, which is a state-sponsored union, and I held that for a while until I disciplined my first CLEAT member, and then I fell out of grace with CLEAT. But I have a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership, and I've received my certified public manager certification from Texas State University. At a time when many communities across the country are at odds with their own defenders, in San Angelo, we enjoy an outstanding connection between the officers and you, and we are truly partners with the public. I started the department in 19, and with 12 years of experience as your chief, I have more years of service to the department, and I am still the youngest of all the candidates in the race. I would have started when I was 18, but I didn't get the custodian job I applied for first. My opponents will say it's time to change, but we have a different motto here in West Texas, and the department is not broken, so it's not in need of fixing. In fact, our department is a model of success being noted all around the state. San Angelo is on the front line of progressive policing strategies that are not only proactive, but are proven. And among my opponents, there are some good, experienced police officers, but, and I say this respectfully, I don't feel that among them, any are administrators by nature. As I mentioned earlier, the SAPD is a $17 million a year operation. Your safety, your feeling of security, and even your property values depend on the successful administration of this operation. Even with strained tax revenues, lean staffing, and an increased population, our team has proven successful. My opponents feel most comfortable in a patrol car, and that's where they each, to a man, propose to realign the department to. However, our success has been in moving away from driving around hoping to deter or catch crime in progress. Instead, it's been using tools of today to anticipate, prevent, and apprehend swiftly when prevention isn't possible. There is room for continued improvement, and it's easy to zero in on areas and offer criticism and conjecture, but campaign rhetoric isn't saddled with the realities of budget constraints, manpower issues, and the daily evolution of crime and law. My team and I have proven results. 12 years ago, I proposed a new type of police department. I promised you would be more informed of crime and safety issues than ever before. I promised you would be proud of your department, and I pledged together we would lower crime. Our partnership with you has been extremely successful, and we ask for your continued partnership today. In closing, I'm asking for your vote because I want to see this on a 50. I want to see the crime reduction by 50% before I turn 50 in my next term. I'm asking for your vote so that we may remain partners against crime. Thank you.
Everybody hear me without the mic?
No, use the mic.
So we'll go this route. How about now? How about now? We're all good now. Thank you for inviting us all. I have the utmost respect for everybody that's sitting here with me today. It takes a lot of guts, courage, and commitment. I respect that. I respect everybody here at this table. I'd like to start off. My name is Frank Carter. I was born and raised in San Angelo, Texas. Wife Shane Carter, 23 years, 2 children, Ryan and Kayla Carter. Recently graduated Central High School, attending college and working part-time here in San Angelo. I am a small business owner. Recently left the school district after 13 years as being a librarian to take over the business. Come to know that many management practices overlap between the public and private sector. I've enabled myself to expand my knowledge in workforce diversity, budgets, project time management, and the amount of taxes local business pay to keep this economy going. I spent 12 years in the Army National Guard, advanced to the rank of Staff Sergeant at the age of 23. At that time, I was supervising soldiers twice my age. Part of that time was active duty on the Texas-Mexico border, assisting U.S. Customs in search of illegal drugs. I was hired in 1992 by the San Angelo Police Department, promoted to sergeant in 1999, commander in 2002. Over the last 17 years, I've been a supervisor and had the privilege of supervising many officers within the department and many who have left. Come October this year, I will have served 24 years with the San Angelo Police Department. The chief talks about he's the youngest candidate running for chief, and he is. He also has more experience or tenure than I do in the department. Although I made the rank of sergeant and lieutenant by the time he finally made sergeant, and had 2 years before he was elected police chief. I have 17 years as a supervisor. During my career, I've been a patrolman, a canine handler, a field training officer, field training coordinator, commander of all 3 patrol shifts, criminal investigation commander, canine and lake unit commander, critical incident commander. Currently, I'm in charge of the northern section of town, the largest patrol shift, the canine unit, the lake and airport unit, and critical incident commander. As of right now, 43 officers are under my command. That's 1/4 of the sworn officers of the department. Being a supervisor for 17 years and having the opportunity to visit and be assigned to many divisions and units in the department, I know our strengths and weaknesses. I want to capitalize on our strengths and focus on our weaknesses. As a chief house, you're less likely to be a victim, and crime is down 43%. I urge you to look up the UCR reports that are filed online for 2013 to 14. Crime increased 4.2%. Let me back up, 2012 to 2013, 2.3%. The 215 UCR stats aren't not online, but we're operating on CompStat figures, which we actually look at and meet as commanders on a weekly and monthly basis. Comparing January 2015 to January 2016, 43% increase. February 2015 to February 2016, a 20% increase. March 2015 to March 2016, a 31% increase. From 2010 to 2015, accidents have increased 10.5%. From 2014 to 2015, citations by the officers have dropped 3,700. I am committed to improving department morale, narcotics and gang enforcement, retention and recruiting, agency relationships, budget and capital improvement, traffic enforcement, patrol tactics, and manpower. Between my father, my sister, and I, we have a combined service to the city of San Angelo and the citizens here for 74 years. Most recent professional endorsements include Combined Law Enforcement Association of Texas, George McRae, 119th District DA, Councilman Rodney Fleming, Single Member District 1, Single Member District 2, Marty Self, Retired Assistant Police Chief John Sparks, Retired Assistant Police Wayne King. In closing, for an educated vote, I ask you to speak to the officers. Yeah, it's the chief of the community, but it's their boss. I'm no politician. I'm up here for the right reasons. I'm a company man, and if a company man doesn't believe things are going right, that's when I step up. I ask for your vote, May 7th, Spring Park. hear me?
Yes.
My name is Jeff Davis, and I am married to Alicia, and I've got my daughter Jessica here. I've got one daughter that's in the Marines right now. She's getting eat up by sand fleas. I'm a Christian conservative Republican, and I know that there's no party affiliation, but that's kind of what I'd like to do is tell you who I am and what I believe in. The reasons I'm running are simply because I love San Angelo. I love the people that are here. I've met some awesome people along the way during this campaign. You know, being in law enforcement for almost 26 years, you meet the worst of the worst. And during a campaign, you meet the best of the best. I believe that citizens of San Angelo deserve better than what they've been getting as far as their law enforcement service. There's always, like I say, room for improvement, but I liken it to all areas of the police department as being broken, but I do know how to fix it all. I'm a problem solver. I want to keep government fresh. I think that we need to go to term limits as far as the chief of police is concerned. I think that politicians across the board, across the nation, they end up growing lost. They've been there so long, and I think it's time to freshen it up, keep them accountable. My experience is over 25 years, 22 and a half with the San Angelo Police Department, a little over 3 years with Goodfellow Air Force Base as a civilian officer. I have approximately 3,000 training hours, both military and civilian police training. I'm a master peace officer. I've been a manager for a large construction company in the oil field business, and I've supervised as many as 150 employees directly. I've taken care of HR, I've taken care of finances, I've taken care of purchasing, investigations. I was pretty much a jack of all trades, the master of none, I guess that's what they told me. I'm currently a business owner, and I do oil field construction with a partner. And if I should be elected chief of police, I will give that business up to my partner. We've already discussed that because I need to be a full-time chief. Items of focus are, we're going to work harder on getting rid of the gangs, drug offenders, sex offenders. We're going to reduce those numbers, and we're going to work on the property crimes, which each and every one of you are subject to being a victim of more than anything. We're higher than the state average, higher than the national average. We're not even in the top 100 in the nation of 100,000 population cities. We're not even in the top 50 in the state of Texas. Somebody's number one, why can't we be? We need to work with our youth more and their programs to help derail them from living a life of crime. We'll train our officers better than ever before, help our community get better prepared for such issues as the ports to planes, potential terrorist activity, and the drug cartels that are already coming through our community. We as a community cannot be unprepared. And the way I see it right now, and talking to the officers, we are pretty much unprepared for those things. New ideals I want to do, I want to implement a random drug testing system and put it in place. I believe that helps with transparency. I want to implement a fitness awards program where people are awarded for their fitness efforts to help them with illnesses and to cut down on the job injuries. I want to get more fuel efficient vehicles, look into hybrids. Some of the studies I've done, you can save $4,000 to $5,000 per unit, even though the initial cost is a little higher for non-first responders. Civilianize more jobs, remove the maximum age for hiring so we can attract some upper leadership straight out of the base, straight out of mainstream. Get them on board. It'll save the city money because they probably won't do enough time to be in the retirement system. So 2 to 1, it's a savings. Plus you have that leadership that can help these young guys that we're getting a lot of on the department and maybe coax them into staying a little bit longer. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to build bridges from law enforcement standpoint between law enforcement. We're going to build bridges between the public as a law enforcement agency, and we're going to build the bridges between the law enforcement and city leaders so we can get things done. If you're butting heads with them every day and you don't come to the table with some good answers and some good solutions, you're always going to butt heads. We'll work with them. If you truly want law enforcement to be the best that it can be, vote for a non-establishment candidate who cares about you and your family. And remember to vote for Jeff Davis, the right person, the right time, for the right reason. Thank you and God bless you.
I don't know about everybody else, but I was worried about the rain messing up my hair. I want to thank everybody for being here. I am Mike Hernandez, a lieutenant with the police department. I've been married to Lisa for almost 29 years. We have 2 children, Joshua and Kelsey. We attend Celebration Church. I'm a former Marine. I've been with the police department for 25 and a half years and have over 3,300 hours of law enforcement training and hold a master's certification in law enforcement. During my career, I've worked in just about every division at the police department that it has to offer. I've worked in patrol, narcotics, special operations, the gang unit, where I earned my nickname Burrito, the SWAT team, which I was 20 years and 10 years of that as a team leader. I've been an officer of the year twice. I've been a supervisor of the year once. I'm the only candidate that's attended the FBI National Academy, which is a prestigious school where less than 1% of all command staff personnel are invited to. In session 256, there were 27 countries and 47 states represented, and what I learned there was that I could do this job. In the community, I serve as a president of the Alcohol Drug Abuse Council. I also serve on the Galilee Board Development Corporation, which is low-income housing, and I am a current member of the Leadership San Angelo Board, and I also serve as an elder on the Celebration Church Board. In fact, when the pastor asked me to be an elder, I asked him if that was for older folks, and he said actually it's for people that have a heart for people. I'm the lieutenant over Charles Company Patrol, which are the guys and gals that patrol from 9 at night till 7 in the morning. During my career, I've been shot at 5 times. I've saved a couple lives, and I've had to take a life. I've had to arrest family members. I've sacrificed a shoulder, and I've sacrificed a knee. What I bring to this office is integrity, leadership, and values. Why am I seeking the office of Chief of Police? Because the SAPD is my home away from home. It's not only time for a change, it's just needed. I lead by example. I pull the cart, I don't push it. I do not ask my troops to do anything I'm not willing to do, and I will not put a policy in front of them that says, do as I say, not as I do. I am and always will be loyal to this department and the citizens of San Angelo. As your chief, I can make you this promise. I will work hard. I will not embarrass you. I will be the biggest servant of us all. I want to provide you with a service you deserve, not a report online or waiting for hours for an officer to respond due to priority calls for service. This isn't Dallas or Houston, which we may never see the officer you call for. Service through leadership is what I have done my entire career. I am Mike Hernandez. I'm humbly asking for your vote on May 7th. Thank you.
Okay, like I said, we're trying, we've got about an hour, a little over, right at an hour, so we want to make good use of our time. So first one that's got a question, please stand up, and if you, direct the question to whoever you like, please stand up.
I guess that's why they put me in front.
Go ahead, Mary.
Okay. All right. You're next. Chief, you said that none of these other gentlemen were administrators by nature. You consider yourself having been an administrator by nature?
That's a good question. Did y'all hear her question? Her question was that I stated that I didn't feel that the other officers were administrators, or the other candidates administrators by nature, because I feel that I am an administrator by nature. You know, I feel from a very, very young age, I was always pulled and drawn and sometimes pushed into leadership positions, whether it was a sporting team or a junior high band, high school band, those type of things. I always took that role, and it was always something that I felt passionate about, was leading. And having been involved in administration now for 12 years, I am very, very comfortable with the daily workings of that, with the very difficult decisions that I have to make in regards to personnel, and handling the budget the way we have to. You know, I think that when we look at the situations that have occurred in our community, officer-involved shootings, in custody death, the death of one of our officers in the line of duty, I navigated our organization through all those major stressful events, and those are events that happen in major cities. And I'm the only one that has the experience through those things. And so to answer your question, yes, I do feel that I'm an administrator by nature.
Thank you.
Okay.
Stand up. So I hear you.
At the great debate, y'all three all alluded to the fact that there were morale problems, but you never got into any of that, and I was hoping to start on this end and go, if we could. Can you give us any specifics and how it affects the working situation?
Okay. I wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't a problem. I would be just as much at fault if I just stood there and did nothing. I'm going on 26 years. There's some that would say I have nothing to lose because I could retire ultimately. But there's 3 individuals on this end of the table that say there's something wrong, okay? It would be just as much my fault if I just sat there and did nothing. I've been there for almost 26 years, and it's going to come down to whether you believe us or you believe the current administration. That's just the bottom line.
But no specifics, you can't.
Oh, as far as the officer's concerned,
Well,
I mean, there's when they're being strapped for working and having to put in overtime and then assisting dispatch with overtime, and the dispatchers are working 10, 20, 30 hours overtime a week, and they don't have a break, and an officer has to go take their spot so they can have a day off. It's getting to the point where these guys are getting run down, and we have to change things. There's things that can be done within the department. You know, the chief wants to talk about you know, the budget and things like that. You have so much that goes to payroll, and the rest, of course there's a learning curve for us. We haven't been in administration, but I've always practiced the 3 L's, look, listen, and learn, and that's what I've done. If I take you back in history, he was a sergeant of 3 officers when he applied for the job, and he started the job well. Okay, some things have changed. The direction needs to change, and the route does need to come back up.
Well, when you address issue of morale, what I've done is I've went across the city pretty much, and every officer that I could see, whether it was at the rodeo, convenience store, just driving by, you know, and seeing them parked somewhere, I asked them, I said, well, how is everything at the police department? They said, it's horrible. And I said, well, what's horrible about it? Well, part of it is the best practices that were put in place a few years ago. And I can understand wanting to be an accredited police department and have a sticker on the side of your car. But ever since that's happened, the service that you have been receiving, it has been going down. The quality's been going down. We are set in basically 4 sectors now. We had 8 districts before with anywhere from 2 to 5 rovers. Response time has basically went through the floor. When I was there in 2007, our response time was 3.5 minutes. It has risen in some cases to 30, 35 minutes or never at all. These officers are strapped with all these 700 or whatever policies and procedures that are put in place. You set yourself up for failure the more policies and procedures you put in place in an institution, a business, wherever. Everywhere I've worked, the more you had, the more people failed. You know, I liken it to a cow track going along the side of a cliff. It's so easy to fall off that cliff. If you widen that road and give them a little bit more discretion, give them a little more trust, they're going to do you a better job. You have to take the pressure off these officers to get that morale back. And you have to be a leader, just like I will be. I'll be on patrol with these guys. I'll be working with them. I'll be going on calls with them. I'll be finding out what your stresses and complaints are as the public. And I'll be asking you every day. I'll be out there. I'm not afraid to work. I worked since I was 13 years old. And I'll work hard for you. I have spent a fortune on this campaign, not taking donations. I took them back. People ask me, how did I do it? I was successful in business. My wife and I made a sacrifice. We have raised a lot of money. We spent our own money and time and effort because we believe in this community. It's not lost, it's not forgotten, and we can do a better job. Thank you.
Yes, there is a morale issue within the department. That's why I touched on it earlier, to make an educated vote, speak to your officers. Let them tell you what they think. You are actually voting for their boss and your chief. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't feel the same. I touched on it early. I'm a company man, always have been. I've been a supervisor for 17 years. I'm number 3 in the department by civil service. I climb my way from the bottom to the top, number 3 in the SAPD. I'm here because of the officers. That was my a balance and act, if you will, to actually run for chief because of citizens of the San Angelo and a lot of officers within the department. I mentioned a little bit about crime rates. I mentioned a little bit about tickets being down 3,700 from the last year. That has to do with morale. These officers are not performing at their maximum performance. And it takes a real leader, not an administrator. I consider myself a leader. I'm always described as fair and consistent throughout my career. Those are leading attributes of I see as a leader, and I'm respected by that definition. Yeah, we don't have administrative skills. We've never been there, but many of us can learn. I have the traits necessary through budgeting, manpower, allocations. Of 17 years of supervising in the police department, I know where the weaknesses are. I know where we downfall. Narcotics are epidemic in San Angelo. It's not hard to figure out. 1 of 4 stops you can run across narcotics if you're not even looking. We have 3 narcotics detectives there. We have more people in community service than we do in the narcotics division. You have to adapt and overcome. That's what the military that teaches you. And as a paramilitary organization, you focus on crimes that are attacking the community. I urge you to speak to the officers. I have a large following of local command staff and rank and file members. I urge you to speak with the officers. Thank you.
I'm going to use this because I want to be sure everybody can hear me. I'm going to take the opportunity to do a rebuttal and try to answer your question specifically. Your question specifically was, how do we gauge what the morale is in the organization? There's a couple of things I want to point out. First off, best practices was hit on. It's not 700, it's 165. I'm proud that we were the 4th department in the state of Texas to receive that award for having the best policies and best practices in place. We just received recognition. We're the 2nd department to receive it 3 times since it started. What it does is it minimizes the liability of the city, of the citizens, and it basically ensures the safety of the officers. Now, getting to the point that you were talking about, when we talk about morale, is morale based on our response times to calls. Our response times to priority 0 calls is 3 minutes. That's what it is. Which are the ones when you're calling and you're screaming on that radio or on that phone, screaming for help, our response time average is 3 minutes. The one thing too is you elected me to make those tough decisions. You elected me to pick those employees that needed to be disciplined or terminated or released from the organization because they didn't buy into the values of our community. And sometimes the best decision isn't always the most popular. I recently tightened up our emergency driving policy, and the purpose behind that is more officers die every year because of driving too fast. And how many times have you seen a police car and got angry because you thought they were driving too fast? Those are the policies that I've put forth in front of the organization. And since I've put those policies in place, we have less officer injuries and we have less vehicle accidents. Now, real specific about your question, in 2004, our dispatch calls for service were 50,346, which made up 72% of the calls that we took in, with 19,800 being self-initiated. In 2015, our dispatch calls was 50,406. That's an increase of only 60 from 2004. But our self-initiated activities, 39,308. That is a 98.4 increase since 2004 in self-initiated activity. You tell me those men and women have a morale issue. They're out there working, and they like what they're doing, and they're doing it for you, and they're doing it for me. Thank you.
I'm going to try to work from the front back and go back and forth, Bill?
In the past year, there have been several incidents in the state of Texas where officers have made controversial arrests on camera, and almost every one of them, within 12 to 24 hours, the officer has been thrown under the bus, if you'd say. Chief says they were wrong and they were fired within a short period of time. Will you stand behind I'm asking each one of you, will you stand behind your officers and see that they get a proper investigation and hearing?
Absolutely.
Is that question for
Did y'all hear
all?
the question?
All of it.
Okay.
The question was that in national TV, basically, and even in the state of Texas, we see officers that have made decisions on video, and within 24 to 48 hours are terminated by the chief of the organization. I had the opportunity 2 weeks after the shooting of the ASC football player occurred in Arlington, if you remember that case, that wasn't that long ago. I had the opportunity 2 weeks later to sit down with the chief from Arlington. He was asking for an endorsement to run for the vice president of International Associations of Chiefs of Police. And I hit him on that because I felt that officer wasn't given his due process. We offer due process is immediate confer, but every employee deserves that opportunity. We cannot go to quick judgment. They're entitled, and they deserve to get the benefit of the doubt until that investigation is over. And once the investigation is over, then everything can be decided up to that point, but never before.
I totally agree, due process, and a lot of times you're seeing just a small clip of the entire scenario. But the officers are always have my heart and my mind. But we need to remain transparent, investigate both sides, from our officer side and from the public side. And whatever that case may be, if they're wrong, they're wrong. We're all adults, we make mistakes, and we need to be transparent and put it out there. If the officer's correct, we need to put it out there too. Our officer did not do wrong in this particular circumstances.
When it comes to that, I think it's a leadership thing. For one, we have civil service here in place in San Angelo. Okay, that's kind of a stop check. Sometimes, unfortunately, you can't get rid of some bad apples, unless you expend a lot of effort. If you have just a bad police officer, but in the circumstance where he's doing his job 100% until we find out that he's 100% wrong. And we'll stick our necks out. I've worked for chiefs that actually would go to bat for you if you were half right until they, proved you wrong. There's so many things out there, the videos, the audio system, to help us out. But there again, if I'm out there working with the guys most of the time, I can't work every shift, can't work 24 hours a day, but if I'm out there working, I'll know the demeanor of almost every one of these officers. And if they show a little lacking something as far as their training, then we're going to get them spun up. We're not going to throw them to the dogs. We're not going to let them hang themselves. And if we see that they are to be praised, we'll be there to praise them. But it will be an extremely fair system, should I be elected.
I absolutely will support my officers. Being involved in a firefight myself, sadly to say, we had to have a camera so that the grand jury would know Bill our shooting. I'll never forget when we first implemented cameras. Some of the officers said that, oh great, Big Brother's going to be watching us. But what I said was, it makes a good officer better and a bad officer gone. So if there is an officer that needs to be gone, as a lieutenant over a patrol shift that gets to review video just about every night, we get to have, we start the initial process of if there's an officer that's doing things he shouldn't be doing. I know that in a prior forum, the chief mentioned that he could tell you guys how often I laid hands on someone as far as the use of force is concerned. I took that as a compliment because I am a working lieutenant. I do lay hands on people from time to time, but I'm the kind of guy that looks back at the camera to make sure that it's pointed in the right direction. I'm the officer, I'm the supervisor that tells my troops, make sure you know, you point that camera where it needs to go, as long as it's not inside the home. That's why we're looking at the body cams. Sadly to say, we're in a society today that we have to have those body cams. So yes, I would definitely support my officers.
I believe Mr. Nolan had a question.
I really don't know who to direct this question at. I guess the chief. I made a post on Facebook the other day, and I think all these gentlemen are friends of mine, so you've probably all seen it. We got like 41 comments to it, and it was basically just a crime poll. How's crime affected you? You know, and I figured I'd get a lot of comments from that, and people just tell their story. It ended up, a lot of people, or at least I know several, seemed to want to vent about how they were treated by officers. They seemed to not care. They maybe had a problem getting their police report. Is that just attributed to low morale, or is there no problem there? And if so, what would you do to correct that? Because that's the feeling from a large amount of people, I think.
You know, David, I don't know how many friends you have on Facebook.
About 2,500.
Okay, 2,500. 41 is a small amount of citizens in our community. However, we have a process, and everybody that's ever contacted me in regards to a complaint, myself and my administrative team have done everything that we could to rectify and correct any issues that they had. We do view videos all the time. You know, there's historically we've got officers in our organization who are hardcore, yes ma'am, just the facts, and that's it. And they're not very compassionate, but they do their job, they just don't do it very friendly. And they're just straight to the point. And sometimes that can come across as being abrasive. But in those particular instances, if that was, I wish you had just told me that there was more fear of crime. Because what happens is we get complacent. As citizens, we become complacent. We did a survey about 6 years ago, and that survey showed that there was very little fear of crime. When we have fear of crime, we're complacent. We'll leave our car unlocked. We'll leave our lawnmower in the yard or in the driveway. But going back to what you just said, if there's an issue, I'd say all they have to do is contact us and let us know. We do try to review videos regularly. We have those available. If an officer has been rude, we address that. We address it quickly. We usually allow the lieutenant to view the video and correct that at shift level. But again, if a citizen is having issues with anything in the organization, we take calls all day long. We're willing to help with anything we can.
I think it's a combination of a couple things, and personality differences, and you know, not everybody responds to each other in the same form or fashion. The other, I think, is morale and overworked, if you will. These sectors, these guys are huge. Take, for instance, mine. It goes from the Bluffs, it runs all the way to Pauline. Anything north of the East-West Freeway. That's a lot of territory. That's a lot of country. There's normally 3 to 4 officers at the maximum in that particular area. So it could be perception also from that citizen where that officer is not allowed to spend as much time in the line and visit with them. And it's to the facts, man. Give me your report and information and see you later. They may not feel appreciated, maybe a perception issue. I want to get back in the neighborhoods. I want to divide it back up in districts. That's when the officer feels responsibility for the area that he works, just like I did. I took offense. Had a burglary in my particular district. I was upset. I went out of my way to find out who did that burglary. That's where nicknames came from. Burrito, McGruff, Boss Hog. Got 2 of them. East side of Chapter and west side of Chapter. They weren't created by the upper 10% in that particular community. They were created by the people that caused the problems, and they knew who you were, and they respected you, and they knew you would come find them.
David, could you repeat the question again? Because I think we got a little sidetracked on the answers.
Well, at the risk of bloviating here, Chief's right. First of all, 41 is just a small sampling out of 2,500, but when you have, you can get that many hits, and the Chief was the first or second one to respond to that, by the way, too. So I know he saw all those comments. There's many comments on there about officers being rude or not responding and not responding back, not coming back, or having trouble getting police reports. And it was just in general that people felt like our police department doesn't care about what's happened to them.
Well, I've heard all kinds of complaints through this campaign. I've heard of actually one man got burglarized 3 times. He called, 35 minutes later, here comes a police officer. The people were in his house. That's what he told me. And he said he got burglarized twice after that. And then I hear where officers don't show up at all on calls. I hear officers showing up and tell them there's nothing they can do. You know, call a detective, you know, tomorrow. We never did that. When I was an officer, we took care of our business. We took care of the people, just like Frank said. The people within our district, we took offense to it. If somebody was burglarizing, you know, homes in our area, were, you know, making assaults, dealing drugs, it was, and that's what we need to get back to again. And I've said it for 8 years. The districts have to come back. We need to get more on a personal level. It needs to be the fish in the bowl that you see around and around and around, not every once in a while. I know that just presence alone is not going to work, but with the proper training, these officers, and giving them a little more discretion, I think they're going to enjoy their job a little bit better than what they do now. I think they drive like this with blinders on. They don't want to see anything, because everything they attach themselves to could be the next disciplinary problem for them.
Mr. Nellen, one of my plan of actions, and I've said this before, is to change it from protecting and serving to serving and protecting, because that's what we do 95% of the time. As far as I'm concerned, one complaint's too many. The bad guys are about the only people in this town that would complain on me as far as laying hands on them and taking them to jail. I've never not served this community the 95% that we serve to the best of my ability, and that's what I want to change. One of the things I do with my troops right now is when I see a video that they were rude, okay, and it happens. Mind you, they're dealing with that 5% about 95% of the time that they've been spit on, cussed at, had to fight, had to tase, had to stick, you know, whatever they did to affect the arrest, okay? But what I like to do is when I see that video, I bring them in. They have no idea why I'm bringing them in. And right before I push play, I tell them we're going to role play here. I'm the officer, and the person that you stopped is, and I do a little research on them, your wife, your daughter, your grandmother. It sort of reels them in, and just to let them realize what they're doing. Sometimes it's just being robotic. That's all it is. You know, there's that fine line of is it rude or is it robotic? They just didn't serve you. But if you can start at the top and change the leadership and lead by example, they'll buy into it.
Okay, let's have a question from this side. Gentlemen, please stand up.
I have 2 questions. My first question is to Mr. Carter here. You made a statement about there was 37% fewer citations in traffic. Like you mentioned, it's not to protect and serve or serve and protect. It's the police officers who's out there doing it. What is your big plan to make these motor patrol or these patrol units to issue more citations? For 37% citations.
Well, it was 3,700 citations, not 37%. And actually in 2014, there was 22,000 citation issued. In 2015, there was 18,316. It all comes from leadership. Like I stated before, these officers are not operating at their maximum level. We're too policy driven. I understand responsibility. I understand liability. I've been in the military. There's such thing as a standard operating procedure. We give these guys guns. They're adults. They know how to do their job, but at some point in time, you can policy drive them to death. It's kind of like the old dog on the porch. You can beat them so many times, all you got to do is raise your hand and it runs off with his tail when he's late.
As a police officer myself, it's my understanding, if the patrolmen or the police officers don't want to do the job, they need to be replaced. And Mr. Hernandez, you made the remark that they're overworked. Heck, yes, they're overworked, and you can't help it if they're overworked. There's nobody to cut them any slack to relieve them or nothing. How many times have we tried to get new officers? How many officers are we short now that we can't get the officers because there's not money, or the city council backstrokes every time we try to get them more officers in this town?
Well, I'll agree that number needs to be expanded. And I can go back for about a month ago when we had 62 officers in the patrol division. That was, and 63 was our minimum number to go back to 8-hour shifts. That was our dire straight. Okay, we're on a 10-hour, 4-10 shift right now. When you go to an 8-hour shift, it increases your manpower. A 12-hour shift does the same thing. We were at 62 and barely holding on. We're always chasing our tail until the last 9 rookies come out on the department. Now we've had 2 or 3 more just within the last month fixing to leave, so we're going to be chasing our tail again. And it's not an issue that these officers don't want to work. They wouldn't be in this profession if they didn't. They're maintaining, they're doing what's expected. They're not going out of their way, some of them, to do more activity than they could.
Well, to protect and serve, they should.
Okay, one more question from this side. Way back in the back.
Roy, can I do a rebuttal to that?
You certainly may.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple things that you brought up that I wanted to discuss. Something about citations. Now, I'll tell you, and I don't have a problem telling you, as your police chief, I've never ordered an officer to write a citation. I've asked them to get out and work and make traffic contacts. If they choose to write you a ticket, that's their choice. If they choose to write you a warning, that is their choice based on the circumstances they're faced in front. The decrease in citations is a national trend. It is occurring. Is it Generation X? Is it Generation Y? It's not because of morale. Texas Department of Public Safety, they are the leading traffic enforcers in the state of Texas, and over the last 5 years, you can look, have consistently seen a decrease in citations every year. This is what I want to point out though. We do have a significant amount of citations that have decreased, 3,700, I think is what he said. In 2010, we had 7,380 tickets for speeding. In 2015, we had 7,900. For red lights, in 2010, we had 454. Now, we know there's a lot more people running red lights. We see it all day. But when you park a police car there, they're not going to run it in front of a police car. It's a very difficult law enforcement.
That's why I don't drive my classics in town.
There you go. In 2015, 556. So when you really look, when you break down the numbers, you don't look at the numbers, the totalities. The number of citations that have gone up for those moving violations that create accidents. So they're doing what they can to make us safer. They're writing less equipment violations, and they're not writing tickets in schools anymore because the law's changed. So where are all the decreases coming from? I can tell you that there's an increase in speeding tickets, and there's an increase in red light tickets, and that's something that I see there. That being said, the average time on call, I think was something else that somebody said. Our average time to spend on a call is 30 minutes, right at 30 minutes. So it's not slam, boom, we're there, thank you, gotta go, it's 30 minutes. We look consistently, regularly, monthly. We evaluate our staff. We evaluate our number of calls that are coming in and how much time we're spending. We try to maintain as efficient patrol division as possible. And I think we're doing what we can with the amount of people that we've got. I have asked the last 2 years for 19 officers. I'll be asking again for 19 officers, and hopefully if I can just get 5. Right now, we're 1 overstaffed. We're 1 overstaffed. I've got 5 certified officers waiting in line. We should have their application process done in the next 4 weeks. And this is something else. There's been tenure that was mentioned here. The average tenure in your police department is almost 14 years. The average age is 38. So we don't have a bunch of little puppies running around, and we don't have the turnover. We have average turnover about 9 to 12 officers a year consistently before I ever even became chief. We've maintained that average. So that's the rhetoric, that's the conjecture, that's the kind of things that I want to be able to clear up, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do a rebuttal.
Okay, Dusty, back there in the back.
Go ahead, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, sir. The reason they're down, and they're down, because you can call municipal court and ask them about how much of the citation and the revenue is down, okay? But it's not about the revenue. When officers are responding from call to call, they don't have time to write citations. And so when folks see those officers that it looks like they're ignoring that red light or the speeding, it's not that they're ignoring it, it's that they're busy. And yes, they are busy. It's because we're short, and we can do it within the department, because there's officers doing jobs that a lieutenant can do. There's officers doing jobs that a civilian can do. If we recruit from our area as far as the Concho Valley, instead of going down to Houston, Texas, and they use us as a stepping stone to get back to Houston where their home is, then maybe we can keep them here just like we stayed. This is our home. It is what it is. The numbers, you know, we can play with numbers all day long, but that's the problem, is we're so busy, we're strapped, we need help, we can do it within the department, and it's about the safety. It's not about the ticket writing and revenue, it's about the safety of the citizens.
Well, Alan, I'll get to you in a minute. Dusty?
This question is for all four. Actually, from Carter on, I'd like to see what their response would be. But back in 2007, 2008, as a business owner, I had contacted the police department for help. I believe it was 27 police reports were written due to theft and burglary at our business. And in contacting the administration, pretty much was told there's nothing we could do. It took myself and my wife sitting there a week, and we had to detain 8 people in a week and a half and get the police department to come pick them up while we got them down, had out their gun pointer, had them sprayed. That being said, we as civilians should not be put in that situation. What would you three do different? Because we've seen what our current administration would do.
Well, Dusty, there again, when I was on the police department, the entire time for over 22 years, if we had situations like that a citizen came and complained and told us what was going on, detectives a lot of times would go put vehicles out with men in them, work nights, whenever this was occurring. And I tell you, we caught more burglars than you can imagine. I've caught dozens of burglars myself in a patrol car just because I knew how they were acting and because of information like what you're giving out. And I stayed in the area, you know, every free moment that I had that I wasn't patrolling the rest of the community or neighborhood, you know, that you're in. It's not hard to catch criminals. You just got to be willing to get out there and get with it. I mean, I don't know where all this science is coming from. You know, it's like a deer feeder. You know, you want a deer to come to, you know, the deer feeder. Hey, crank it up. There they come. You know, criminals, they're no different. You know, we used to set vehicles out with guns in them on the racks, unlocked. You know, in high crime areas. You know, people breaking into vehicles. Here you go, a day or two, bam, we got them. You know, problem solved. You know, until the next guy grew up and became a criminal. You know, I mean, it's simple. You just you gotta put some effort. You know, you gotta be willing to get your, you know, elbows a little bit dirty, and that's it.
I talked about, Mr. Thompson, about serving, and you should be served, especially if we can catch a bad guy. That's what the guys, for the most part, want to do, is catch bad guys. That's why I believe I was so successful in patrol narcotics and the gang unit, because I listened to the folks as far as what they needed done. And you know, that's what it's all about. It's working as a team, not only with other law enforcement agencies, but with the civilians as well. If you tell us that something is going on, more eyes and ears, it makes us look good. That's why the gangbangers would always think the burrito knew everything. Well, I didn't know everything. It was because I listened to people and I responded to what they needed.
Dusty, I can't speak specifically to the incident you're talking about, but I hopefully if you had some people at gunpoint or detained, that we had a very fast response. Unfortunately, that's the problem, even with our criminal investigation division. They're overtaxed on their caseload. you're a victim of crime and there's basically no suspect listed, it's a good chance that that case will go inactive. They're working enough cases in the felony branch that they've got known suspects. And as far as misdemeanors, as far as your good Class A assaults, a person gets beat up against another person, or your thefts, Walmart, whatever the case may be, or somebody steals something, they're not being worked. They simply fill out a packet, send it to the county attorney's office, and let's hope it gets investigated. Case in point, working on an individual that had 5 pending theft cases back in December, and none of them have been prosecuted or looked at from the county attorney's office. We just got in a chase with him in Butler Farms the other day. 5 cases of theft. It takes 2 cases to be a felony. None of those were indicted, so there's 5 cases sitting there since December. The guy's eating alive. But going back, manpower is an issue as far as even the caseload and everything else. I hope we can get a quick response if something like that happens. It's something where we can work on, hopefully do better.
Okay, Lillian, I'm going to jump to the other side and then come back to you, Bill.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question for Lieutenant Hernandez. You made a remark about you wouldn't have a policy of do as I say, not as I do, and I wonder if you would elaborate on that.
Here we go.
Can you use the mic, please? Because I see some of the back going like this.
Can y'all not hear me when I don't use it back there? Better to use it? Okay, I keep hearing that click and it's, anyway.
Well, I apologize for my business.
You know, we recently, I'll never forget when this administration took office, they said they were going to downsize our policy. Well, our policy is probably twice as big as it used to be. We recently took out a policy that doesn't allow a first-line supervisor to determine whether the vehicle has been damaged or not. Okay, so I was advised to go investigate this damage to a vehicle. I kid you not, when I pulled up to the shop and I saw that vehicle on the ready line, the push bar was pushed up against the vehicle. It was crooked. And I thought automatic, what was that sergeant thinking? I'm going to have him, I'm going to write him up, and there's no doubt it's damaged. And as I walked up, the push bar is just touching the bumper of that vehicle. It's just touching. There's no damage. As far as I was concerned, whiteout could cover that, okay? All they had to do was unscrew that push bar, push it back out, and done deal, as far as I was concerned. So I didn't write him up. And so now that policy was taken out where that first line supervisor cannot make that decision on his own. And one more, because you asked the question. If we are being reprimanded or dealt with, cannot show emotion. It's been added to the policy. Okay? Well, I'm sorry if I'm showing a little bit of emotion right now, but it is what it is. I'm a human being. Thank you for the question.
Okay, I'm going to go to this side. I've been over this side. Way back in back, Brenda. Can you be heard?
Can y'all hear me out there?
Just barely. Come up to the middle, kind of.
I just wanted to know, it's been mentioned about policies and procedures, and one of my biggest concerns about everything is federal overreach, state overreach. So, how much of our policies and procedures come from within our own city, and how much is being brought down through the state and the federal level?
I'll answer that. Most of our policies are done within, in the best practices, the way the best practices work, it says you will have, it says that you will have a policy, or you shall have a policy that addresses car chases. You will have but it doesn't tell you what that policy has to be. So we develop our policy. In regards to the policy on the city vehicle stuff, the new city shop guy said that the cars won't be repaired, push bumpers or whatever pull back out unless we have to write it up or document it. We used to have that luxury that we could make the decision whether or not we needed to do that. We have very few laws or policies that are federal overreach or state overreach. We do follow use of force. We base it off what the state has described as lawful, and that's what we follow. But for the most part, our policies are internal policies and deal with our processes is the way that we deal with them.
Okay, the gentleman in the back had his hand, but I'm gonna call on Bill first, and then I'll go way back in the back. Bill?
This is for Mr. Hernandez, please. Last weekend, I had the opportunity to visit with a group of men from Hobbs, New Mexico, and I came to find out that they truly lamented that Hobbs is known as Little Chicago because drug cartels are using it as a major distribution center, and the level of gang activity there is outrageous. There's deaths occurring all the time, and the citizens are quite frankly afraid. Two questions. Are you aware of what's going in the Hobbs area? And number two, God only knows what the police association there did not do to prevent that from ever developing. What can we do here to prevent something like that from developing in San Angelo?
I wasn't aware of that, but obviously we need to be proactive, not reactive. We reacted to the double homicides recently where many an officer was working 32 hours straight to get 7 people into custody. In the early 90s, the mid-90s, we had a gang unit that was very proactive. We shut the gangs down. I'm the only candidate that has worked on the gang unit in the past. We need to keep that spotlight on those gangbangers. When you turn the lights off, they're going to come out of the woodwork. When you're not taking care of business as far as and I'm talking about minor violations of the law, and I don't want to talk about all those that you use, but you want them to know that you're working them. And right now, because our database is backlogged 2 years, okay, we're not able to enhance those homicides and put them together as far as an organized crime because we fell behind the curve. We need to bring that unit back to what it used to be so that we can put those gangbangers back in their homes so that they don't want to come out and play with us, if you will.
Okay, gentleman in the back with the brown coat.
I spent right at 26 years on the fire department here in San Angelo. I've known Frank and Jeff for over 30 years. I knew them before they were even on PD. I met Mike when he was first let go from his FTO. And I've been on scene with those 3 gentlemen. So my question is to Chief Vasquez. After the 2012 election that you won, and I listened to you talk about your policies and your fairness and this. After the 2012 election, you wrote letters to 5 people that I know of, 2 of which I know very well that retired with exemplary careers. And you banned them from ever training or qualifying at PD drill. And I was just wondering if you could explain to me why that was done.
Absolutely, love to. You know, some of you followed the elections for quite some time, and you'll go back to the 2008 election. There was a lot of unscrupulous things that were occurring in that campaign. But I'm going to tell you why I sent a letter, it was to 2 individuals, why I sent a letter to those people telling them they could no longer qualify at our gun range. Number 1, I had the authority to. But number 2, it was because my training staff asked for that. They were tired of hearing these people come out to the gun range and trash the department. And they came to me and said, is there anything you can do to keep these people away from our rookies and away from the training? I said, yes, I just tell them not to go. And that's what happened. So that's it in a nutshell.
I want to go to the left side here. I'll get to you in just a second. Anybody on this side? No hands? Okay. I think there was a gentleman that stood up in the blue shirt, or blue shirt. No? I guess it's a dark blue shirt.
This question is for Frank Carter, Jeff Davis, and Mike Hernandez.
You're going to speak up, sir.
This is for the challengers to the incumbent. What working solutions will you present to the city council members to raise our police officers' salaries and increase the number of officers in San Angelo? And in what time frame would you do so?
Well, pay is,
Get the mic.
that's been,
Get the mic.
pay's always been an issue when it comes to law enforcement, firefighters, public servants, the military. Typically, it's kind of a weird scenario because those are the people that lay their lives down each and every day for you. And it's been throughout history. I mean, you can go back hundreds of years.
Battery down.
Anyway, I'll talk louder. Anyway, those issues are always going to be there. The pay, when I first started at the police department in '85, I was making $7 an hour. And you know what? It's not always about the pay with the job because it was more about the job than the pay with me. Thank you very much, sir. But not everybody's cut out to be a soldier. Not everybody's cut out to be a firefighter or a policeman. It takes a special kind of person with the right kind of heart and drive to really make a difference in those fields. But it'll be something that we'll continue to work on because I think it needs to. I think that we need to do more with less. Governments across the nation are fighting the same thing. This is not unique to San Angelo. And just like, it's been said, I believe the chief said it, our tax base and stuff has dwindled a little bit, We're on the edge of the oil field, and everybody touts all of our new money is coming from the oil field. Well, that's kind of a fallacy. A lot of those guys are just here because there's nowhere else to stay. I worked in Garden City, and I drove 80 miles to work and 80 miles back every day, But I made that choice. And it's all about choices. There are people that'll never be police officer because of the pay. And like I was saying before, you'll take some people on removing the maximum age that didn't want to be a police officer years ago because the pay was so horrible. I could barely feed my family. But it's gotten better, and we'll keep working on all the issues.
Pay is certainly an issue. We're making leaps and bounds, working with the city and our meet confer team, who's basically comprised of some supervisors and officers within the department. We're on a 3-step plan right now. I think going into this next October will be our 3rd step of our raise. Pay is important. These guys deserve it. It's not the biggest motivator for attracting police officers to your department. If you've studied management before, it is big, but the biggest thing is having the leadership and having a manager or leader or whoever your boss that appreciates you, cares for you, and has a department. Yes, our structure with the city council, it was set, or the number of officers that we could hire was 159 plus 5%. Yeah, I'd like to increase that number. It was set probably back in the 80s, a long time ago, but the problem is we can't even get there now. So 159 plus 5%, our turnover rate. People retire, people leaving, going to other places. We're constantly, every year, chasing our tail. We need to focus on retention. We need to look at lateral transfers. Instead of spending $50,000 in a year to get that recruit up and trained, we need to focus our attention on lateral transfers. That's what all these other departments are. They're putting their salaries in that experienced officer and drawing to the department who don't have to go to the academy. Send them through the academy, spend $50,000, and we're used as a training ground. There's a lot of officers that have been through this department in the last 12 years, from 2 to 10 years. They got trained up, we spent the money, and they left. Wasted money.
I would do it just as quick as humanly possible. I would put an administration in place that could do the day-to-day job at the police department, and then I'd get out there and mend some fences that need to be fixed. with the city entity, the city council, the mayor, the citizens, everybody working together to get the officers what they needed. That's what I would do.
Okay, I want to stop for just a second. Our meeting is officially over at 8 o'clock, but I'd like to run over if we're making progress. Does everybody like to stay another 15 minutes? Just raise your hand. Okay. I don't like to just cut it off because, our meeting goes an hour and a half, and, but as long as we're having fun, I like to keep going. The young lady in the red blouse back there, she's been having her hand up.
Well, I just wanted to clarify.
You're going to have to speak up.
I wanted to clarify something that Mr. Vasquez said. My husband is one of the persons that got that letter that he was no longer allowed to qualify to get his yearly certificated qualifications. And number one, I wanted to clarify that my husband was qualifying, he retired in 2004. And he qualified under Mr. Vasquez's leadership while he was chief from 2005 until 2012. And Mr. Vasquez told my husband that the reason he got that letter is because he bought a billboard. That was the reason that he was sent that letter.
That is actually not true at all.
Is that a question or a statement? Okay. The gentleman in the blue shirt.
This is a question toward the incumbent, Chief Vasquez.
Going to have to speak up.
Yes. I need to go back on March the 8th, there was a city council meeting regarding a costly mistake made by the assistant chief regarding technology upgrades, not working with the fire department or the municipal court, and it's been costly to us taxpayers to the tune of $150,000, and that's the estimated cost. My question is to Chief Vasquez, were you aware of this situation, and what do you plan to do about it? This is occurring on your watch.
If you can condense that question.
Yeah, basically, he was saying that recently on March 8th, that there was it was in the council meeting, it was in your little, I don't remember what it was, but it was the cost that they were talking about implementing forward. He said the assistant chief made an error, and what are we going to do about it? Well, the error wasn't necessarily on our part. You have to understand, we're bringing in new technology into our organization. That new technology also requires certain things that need to be updated. When we involved fire department from the very beginning, they said the situation did not affect them at all. As we went through the process, it was discovered that the fire department's equipment is outdated and would need to be fixed. However, as I explained to everybody that day, we could leave it as it is and there'd be no trouble. The problem is that right now when a dispatcher gets a call and they want to send out a fire department or an ambulance, they enter the call and they hit a button. They hit enter on the keyboard. That will then set a tone so that the fire department, when it goes to the fire department, they hear either this type of tone or this type of tone to let them know it's an ambulance runner or fire truck. Then those people are the ones that pay attention, wake up, do whatever they're doing to get ready to handle that call. And that's the only difference is they were going to lose that ability to differentiate between the types of calls or the type of tones. So basically they were going to have one tone. And what was going to happen was the dispatcher, instead of hitting enter on the keyboard, was actually going to have to manually push a button. And since they wanted the extra tones, then that's why the other equipment's having to be purchased. Now, we are still well in our budget. We were approved $1.5 million for that upgrade. We're well beneath that, so we're not costing the taxpayers any extra money than was already approved for that project in the first place. We still are going to have a cost savings at the very end of the project. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, we've still got another 15 minutes you all agreed to. I saw this guy's hand go up first.
I was curious to see if the candidates, all of them, would be willing to have a forum with the officers themselves, since you are their boss, to be able to hear what they have to say, hear their concerns on a level. Of course, you would have to do so to stagger with the shifts so that all the officers' voices can be heard. But then secondly, once you're elected, as chief, how are you going to stay grounded to your officers?
You know, I'll go first and I'll answer your question. Your question would be yes, but we do have a sounding board for them. Of course, we have weekly command staff meetings where we meet with the lieutenants. For the first few years of my tenure, we tried to do at least a bi-weekly or bi-monthly or every 2 weeks we were doing a review board. And basically it was called the Chiefs Advisory Board. The officers, each shift in each division had officers that would bring their issues and come discuss them with us, with me and the other chiefs, without their sergeants or without their lieutenants. It became where there was not that many issues, so we dropped it back to once a month. So we have Chiefs Advisory Board once a month, so the rank and file can come in and visit with the chiefs without any other supervisors there. You know, that we have a couple of things that come through, we listen to them. I don't always give them what they want. Last thing they wanted was a popcorn machine and DDO, and I told them I wasn't going to buy a popcorn machine. But there's other things that we have gotten from them directly. We also meet with the sergeants monthly, just with the sergeants. And then, of course, we meet with the lieutenants every Tuesday.
I was hoping each candidate would.
I think that's a great idea. Timing would be an issue, based on the shift configurations and everything else. And the number of forums that we're having to attend. This week, yeah, that we already have. This week's pretty taxing on everybody up here, by the way. I appreciate everybody standing up here. It takes a lot of courage and commitment and dedication. That's all I got to say. Thank you. But staying in contact with the officers is very important, especially the line officers, the people that do the work. They don't need a chief. The chief needs those officers. They are the ones that are performing. Your business is only as good, or your organization is only as good as the people that you got working directly beneath you and the people that have got boots on the ground. We seem to get, as we get relaxed in that position, as administrators, we forget about those guys. I know, speaking on behalf of my shift, if I don't go down there and talk to the administrators or my boss, the assistant chief, these officers don't see them. It's even worse on nights. You have to do things out of the ordinary. You have to amend your schedule as the boss, as the manager, as the leader, as the administrator, and change your schedule and go visit those guys on nights. Let them know they're appreciated. You know what it's all about. Like I said before, it's not all about money. It's about those officers want to feel like they're appreciated and they're cared for. It's not all about money. That's secondary.
I would love to visit with more officers than I already have. I know quite a few that are still there, and I've met some new ones. The way that I would be working as a hands-on chief, I would be meeting with all the shifts all the time as the administrator. And I think it's very important to stay in touch. You know, working for the construction company, you know, I would go out at night and I would work with some of the truckers, you know, and just hear their concerns and, you know, check their equipment over. And they liked it, you know. It wasn't like I was, you know, spying on them. I mean, they knew when I was coming. And I built a lot of respect out of doing that. You know, they were like, man, you're coming out here at night, you're driving 80 miles, you know, to come, and then you got to turn around and come back in the morning. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you got to do. But I knew everything that was going on with that company. And it can be the same way with the police department. You just have to work at it.
I too would love to meet with the officers, but that's awful hard to do under our current administration. We have a couple of young officers at the back. I appreciate them being here. You know, I'm one of those victims as far as I'm concerned, as far as coming home from the FBI National Academy in 2014. I let the chief know that I was going to seek the office of chief of police, and I got shipped out of the public information office. So they have to be careful with retaliatory type situations if they voice an opinion and want to support a certain candidate. And I don't think that's right. And so it would be hard to do that. And I too agree that we've had so many forums recently, I don't know that we could squeeze another one in.
Okay.
I'm going to respond to that.
All right, make it quick.
I think if I'm going to get called out like that, you know, I'm not going to discuss, my job as the administrator is not to sit and discuss publicly personnel issues, especially performance issues. Performance issues that were being addressed way before the FBI Academy ever occurred. The only reason some people stay in positions long enough was because I defended them to stay in those positions long enough, at the request of other supervisors saying it was time for a transfer. However, that's not the fact. There wasn't any of that type of behavior. It is what it is. You were given the opportunity to perform, and you didn't meet the requirements as listed.
And so what I would say is, why does a lieutenant of 22 years get to go to the FBI National Academy, a prestigious school that your career has to speak for itself, and you being the chief, allow me to go, sir?
Amen.
Yeah. I really don't want to do this, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say the FBI Academy is a lot of the St. Angelo Police Department position regularly over and over and over again. I choose who goes. None of the people that have attended under my administration have been personally invited to attend that FBI Academy. I'm the one that chooses who attends, me. And I chose Mike at the time because it was the right time for him. The opportunity was presented for him and it was given to him. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the transfer, and that's out of respect to you and your people that are here, Mike.
Okay, I think we're really having fun now. I saw a hand go up over here. Steve.
It's for you, Tim Vasquez. When I was talking to people about the candidates, a couple people mentioned that you had a really good idea a couple years ago, and that was to build I don't know if it was a monument or a wall or something that would honor the fallen police officers from the area. But I said, oh, where is it? I'd love to go see it. And they said, we don't know. We don't know whatever happened. Money was collected. So can you just let me know about that?
The question was, a couple of years ago, we talked about creating a police monument, and she wants to know the update on the monument. We actually have the monument. It's been built. It's already been sent off to get bronzed. Well, it's not. We're going to put it in front of the station until if and when we get a new facility, and then we will find a place for it there. It's a very beautiful sculpture. Ruiz is the one that did it for us. He does have pictures, and he does have small ones there at his office, which is on South Chapman or North Chapman. If you'd like to take a look at it, we're still about $30,000 short from being going. So he went ahead and sent it off to get bronzed anyways, hoping that once it gets back, the community will support it and see it, and help us raise that extra $30,000.
Okay, now, remember, I want to give these guys a couple of minutes to close the remarks, so I'm going to take a few more questions. And as long as we're having fun, I'm not going to shut this thing down. You've already asked a question, Bill. I'm going to try and find somebody that hadn't called on. How about this lady right here?
This is for all the candidates. Each one of you seems to have some very good ideas about what would make the police department better. But only one of you is going to be chief of police. What's going to happen to the other candidates right now? What's going to happen, no matter who's elected chief, and start with Mr. Carter?
I mentioned it earlier, I worked my way up from the bottom. I'm number 3 in the department by civil service. I'm covered by civil service as a lieutenant. There's nothing that can happen to me. He can move me to 9th. No, the other guy that's above me, my boss, my assistant chief, he's got 35 years of service, and there's one more lieutenant between me and him, and it's me. Mike's in the same category as I am. We're protected by civil service. Like I said, nights, I've been there, I've patrolled, commanded all patrol shifts. I can watch a Coke machine if I need to.
Well, like Frank said, the protection of civil service, I've said it before, would cover these officers. They have been contributing to the police department for many years, and they would continue. The way that I would do the assistant chief selection, it'd be the first ever that's ever been done like this in San Angelo. There would be a selection process, an application process put into place. They would be willing, or they would be qualified rather, to put in for those positions. I would get 2 commanders from the base, 2 upper management from the police department that are not wanting to be an assistant chief, and every selection in key positions within that department would be conducted this way. And I believe it would be simple to put it in place, and rather than cronyism, and it's my buddy, and it's always been the buddy system. I was tired of it through the years that I worked there. It was always about, well, whoever candidate was, whoever's best buddies are, you know, whether they were qualified to do the job or not, that's who became the assistants. Well, I need the right person in that job for the right reason. You know, it's like a toolbox, you know. You don't unscrew a Phillips head, you know, with a crescent wrench. So you find out who the best people are, plus you're going to build credibility and you're going to build your integrity with your men, because they're going to see that you're starting off on the right foot.
I would continue to do my job with a smile on my face. I don't choose to be on deep nights, but working with those guys, like I said before, they take you back 20, 25 years, and it's fun. And to tell you the truth, I'd much rather be working with them right now instead of doing this.
I'm just going to be very brief. What Lieutenant Carter said is right. Everybody has the civil service protection. You know, in 2004, I ran against 4 of their opponents, and all of them kept their job. And in 2008, I ran against 5 opponents, and they all kept their job. In fact, I transferred one from patrol into administration because he wanted to get a taste of it. He requested a transfer, and I gave him the opportunity. He was one of my opponents. And I promoted one of my opponent's wives to lieutenant. First female officer promoted to lieutenant in the department. So these guys will continue to do the job that they will do after the selection is long over.
Okay, I'm going to take one more question. There's a young lady that Brenda's pointing to back there. Tap her on the shoulder.
In the red shirt, I hear younger than me.
Oh.
Okay. My question is for Jeff Davis. You said that you wanted more programs for youth. Okay, are you wanting for the at-risk youth? Are you talking as citizens like getting the at-risk, getting to all the youth, or what kind of programs?
I'm talking about including all of you, trouble and not trouble. I mean, we need to get in there, and we need to get with them, and we need to show them that we're not the bad guys. You know, I hate it when a woman's in Walmart and she points over to a police officer and says, "Oh, you better straighten up, little Johnny. That officer's going to get you." We need to build the bond back. We need to build it back like we used to have it, where the neighborhoods knew the name of their officer. The kids would wave at us. You know, we'd hand out cards, baseball cards and stuff. Just little things like that can build so much rapport with these children, and we can help build them into human beings that are part of this community rather than part of the system.
Okay, as long as nobody's walking out, I'm going to keep calling you. You gentlemen, hold up your hand back there.
I just wanted to kind of agree with what Mike said about being a police officer and you get blackballed and singled out.
Are you a police officer?
I was for 3.5 years, and I left during meet and confer because I told city council if you didn't give us a pay raise, I'm walking. And I walked and went to Walmart and made double my money, and I wasn't getting spit at. I did end up getting cursed at, but I didn't have to fight anybody. So I felt like the Lord was telling me to come back to being a police officer, so I reapplied at Tim Vasquez, said, "Hey, come back, we miss you, we really wish you weren't here." Still have the email. I was a police officer, I was the recruiter, I was given the Chief's Award for recruiting, but then I backed Jeff Davis in 2012 for police chief, and I can't pass a background investigation now. So my question is being that is true because Mike was put into a position because he said he's going to run. I can't be a police officer in San Angelo because I endorsed Jeff Davis. And my question is to Mike Hernandez, there's a good picture in the 2012 election of you hugging Chief Vasquez, endorsing him, supporting him for police chief. But now, 4 years later, you're against the chief, although we have the picture of you hugging him. And I asked you, why didn't I pass a background? It's against my ethics to tell you, Mr. Bart. It's against my ethics to talk to you about you. What does that tell everybody in here? I can't tell you the real reason because it's unethical. So my question is, in 2012, you backed him. Why don't you know? What's so different now?
Okay, well, you don't stay with the captain of the Titanic if the Titanic's going down, okay? The chief was in a better place at one time, and he talked about being on the board to Emmaus, okay? He was my sponsor for the walk to Emmaus. I'm in a great place today. I don't think he's in such a great place today. That's why, okay? I'm not his friend anymore, if you will. But in reference to your background, as a peon, a lieutenant, when the chief tells you to do something or you can or can't do something, then I can't do it. That's it. I apologize. That's all I can say.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Richard Bart, if you would like for me, if you don't know, I can either tell you privately why you didn't get hired, or I can tell you publicly. But to sit here and call me out in front
See, I can
of...
tell you publicly because if you want to talk about morality, I'd be more than happy, sir, to talk about morality with you. Greatly.
Well, let's keep this civil, folks. I'm not gonna have a stand-up.
I'm not here to be ashamed. I've done everything in my life. He who has not sinned cast the first stone. And
I'm saying if you've got an issue with Vasquez, you need to take it up with him after the meeting.
Absolutely.
He was offered to say it.
Absolutely. I'm not going to say it.
Okay, at this time, I think that it's time to have some closing remarks. Okay, Bill, I'm gonna let you ask one question to one officer.
I don't really have a question. But I do have a statement. These guys, whichever one wins, you were talking about manpower and money for the officers. They can't do it by themselves. You, the people, need to talk to the mayor and each city councilman, attend city council meetings if you can, and bring it up. Help these guys. That's the only way it'll get done.
Okay. All right, I want to start with Mr. Vasquez, and I want you, can you give a 2-minute summary and go down the line?
I'll do better than that. I got you.
All right.
I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to allow us to come and go through this process as tedious and frustrating as it can be. But I do appreciate you giving us your ears and asking the questions that you're asking and getting involved in the process. We need more people like that in our community and in our country to get involved in our process. I know that I don't always make popular decisions, but I feel the decisions I make are always what's best for this community. And that being said, I think if you take the time to look past the rhetoric and look past the smoke and mirrors, you'll see that I'm the only one that's qualified to do this job. I believe I've done you a good job, and I will continue to do a good job and stay committed to you like I always have. Thank you.
Again, thank everybody for coming this evening. Thank you, Tea Party, for the invite. I said it once already. Thank the guys up there with all the courage. Leadership, experience, commitment.